Good morning, y'all. Oh man, God is troubling me about this whole situation. I had to turn the TV off. I couldn't take it. None of the channels. I mean, you can see the lies. You know, everybody's lying. I mean, all the major networks, everybody's getting in on it. And Satan uses fear to rob your peace, and that's what he's doing. I mean, he pumping fear everywhere. You're gonna run out of food. The grocery store's on a riot. People are, just everything. And they're trying to make you feel like life is out of control. And that is Satan's strategy, to keep you so stressed out, so that you don't have the peace, so that you can't decide, so that you can't think right. They got us afraid of our families and all this stuff that's going on in the news. Has got families can't even talk to one another, and because it depending on what choice you make in the election, because Satan's got this all in your face all the time. Because see, the television set is being used by the media to control us, and fear, bad, those people, them people, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. We can't fall for that. Look unto the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Do you know it's been said, and I believe this: if you don't fear God, you fear everything else. But if you fear God, you don't fear anything else, because God's got. Now, there is a place for fear in our life. I mean, fear is a valuable emotion. I mean, a proper fear stops you from jumping out of a moving car, from hanging off the side of a ladder and falling from 4 stories up. You know what I mean? So a healthy fear has you operating with a reasonable amount of respect for what can physically happen to you. But the fear that's harmful is the one that it paralyzes you and stops you from doing anything. I mean, they got us scared to go outside and breathe. Don't want you to go out in your yard and work in your yard without. I see people working in their yard with a mask on, and we're being lied to. And all you have to do, if you don't believe that, all you got to do is go to your knees. Believer, if you're a believer, you really want to know, you go to your knees and ask the Lord what's going on, and he'll bring you the revelation. I mean, we're being lied to. Turn that television set off. You know what I'm saying? That's the first thing you need to do. The fear of God teaches us how to live our lives so that God is honored and he can bless us. Psalms 34:11-14. Come, my children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Now, I mean, God's way is best. God's way is best. I just want to look at 2 examples in the Word of men that overcame their fear. Now, we all know the story of David and Goliath. The Israelites had been under attack by the Philistines, and back in the day, they all, what they would do is to try to minimize some of the bloodshed. They would each country would choose a champion, and they would send that champion out, and those 2 would fight, and they would fight to the death, and whoever won would have won the war, and the other army would concede. And so the Philistines had chosen a giant. But David, and you all know the story. He came out to bring his brothers some lunch, and when he came out, he came out and he had seen this giant from Goliath, from the Philistines, coming out every day, taunting the Israelites about, send out the champion, and everybody's afraid to do it, So David, he came out, and this is what he saw. 1 Samuel 17. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 9 foot 9 inches tall. He was 3 inches shorter than a basketball goal. 9 foot 9 inches tall. His arm probably could reach up halfway up the backboard. You know what I mean? That's a giant. We talk about being able to dunk. Man, he just dropped it in over his head. He wore a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 125 pounds. He had 125 pounds of armor on him. On his legs, he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 15 pounds. His shield bearer went ahead of him, and they estimated Goliath's weight at 600 pounds. He was a monster. But when he came out there, he didn't see Goliath. He saw God, because he had seen God move in his life already. Because remember, he had taken on a lion and a bear. And a lion weighs 420 pounds, and they're about 8 feet long. And he took on a Syrian bear, and however big that was. So when he looked at that, he said, he didn't see the problem. He saw God, and he knew that the rocks, and he wasn't trusting his own efforts. He was trusting God. For us to be able to flow like God wants, we have to be able to recognize when God has moved in our life in those impossible times. I know for me, I don't care what I run into when anything comes up, people start talking about, well, what they gonna do or what's gonna happen to me or this and that and that. I get to thinking about, well, shoot, he drugged me out from under a car, So, how could that? We have to begin to embrace the fact that God can do the impossible and that he loves you and that he's with you, because otherwise, we begin to look at the physicals of the world and it'll scare you to death. And that's what they want to do, control you with fear. And what they're doing is taking, using that fear to make you give up this right and give up that right. And don't do this. Don't go see your family. Don't have Thanksgiving. Don't drive the car. Just all kinds of things. And we got to let that go. That is not becoming of a believer. We should not be afraid of anything. We should be fearless, and not the ridiculous fearlessness, but see, a true revelation of God takes the power of death away from you. Because if you really know the God who he says he is, and he is, y'all, he is. Death has no power over you. You will never die. You will transition out of this body, but you will never die. And if the worst thing that can happen to you is that they kill you, at some point we have to embrace that and just accept that that's going to happen. Everybody's going to die, and that's the biggest fear that man has. And keep in mind, fear is not developed by the world around you. It's developed in your mind. And if they can get these thoughts in your head and, oh no, and you're thinking about this and you're thinking about that, and that'll scare you to death. But what does the Bible say? Think on these things. Whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is holy, think on these things. And the peace of God that surpasses all understandings will solve your heart, will come to you. And a second example I just want to bring up, remember the story in Daniel 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and a bad Negro. Told y'all cut me for that. I heard Tony Evans say that a long time ago. That cracked me up. But anyway, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And in that story, Nebuchadnezzar had set up golden idols and it commanded that everybody in the country would bow down to that. Well, that's what they're doing now. They're setting up this one world government, and they plan for us to all bow down to that idol. It's the exact same situation. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to do it. And so I'll pick up the story in Daniel 3, verse 13. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" This is their response, verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. In other words, God has the way, it's God's plan. And all we have to do is God just wants us to make our choice. Do we choose him or do we choose the world? And I don't care what it is in front of you, what they're threatening you with. Stand with God, because he's the one that made all this stuff up. You know what's so problematic with this whole situation? I get to think about this whole science thing. And one of the issues with man's understanding of science is that everything has a beginning. Because they say all the laws of thermodynamics and all those kinds of things that kick in, all that stuff dictates that in their science. But they can't figure out how it all began, because that means that something had to come out of nothing. Because at some point in our history, there was nothing, and then there was something, and they don't know what to do with that. You know what I mean? And that is the God that we know. And he comes in, and those of you who have a witness in yourself knows that something happened to you. And when people have dreams and visions and stuff happens to all of us. And God gives everybody enough of what shows everybody has an opportunity to know him, okay? And he does that by showing you something. Now, you can refuse that thing. Even the people that send the voodoo and all that other stuff, they chose the power of darkness over the power of God, knowing that they both exist. But anyway, verse 19. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude towards them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent, and the furnace was so hot, that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers. The flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that were tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. Come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors, these are all, in Nebuchadnezzar's cabinet, crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair on their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched. There was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." I guess he did. "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angels and rescued his servants. They trusted him and defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. People sit back and say, "Well, that's just a folklore." No, it ain't. No, it ain't. We've all seen too much. When I hate to keep talking, but God showed me stuff all my life. When I was 10, when we moved out to Glendale, I was 10 years old, and I remember I slept in it was 4 of us. I had 3 sisters, and it was me. I was the oldest, and I had my own room, and I was in that room. We had been out there, I guess we'd been out there maybe 2 or 3 years. I don't know. And, we must have went to church but anyway, here's what happened. It's about, I don't know, it was dark. It was maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night or whatever time it was. And, all of us were in the bed. Like I said, I was the oldest, but my other sisters were all in their rooms and all that. And I'm laying in the bed, and this black thing floated down out the ceiling and came down around me and was trying to. I watched it come down. It didn't have a shape. It kind of had a shape, but I don't know what it looked like. I was paralyzed seeing this thing floating down out the ceiling on me, and it came down around me and tried to smother me. Okay, well, Doug, you must be lying. No, I ain't. What if I'm not? What if I'm telling you the truth? Because I am. And this thing, and I'm laying there, and all of a sudden, it was smothering me, and it just popped into my head. I said, Jesus, and the thing went poof. I jumped out the bed, went down there to see and ran to my mom's and dad's room and told them all the situation, and all that kind of thing. And mom was going, yeah. And then he said, boy, go back to bed. But I didn't go back in that room for a long time, and that happened. See, there's too many things, and all of you have seen something, that doesn't fit into your daily flow. God has got you. So, with that, here's, 5 things that somebody on the internet wrote it out. This internet is great because, we're all talking to each other everywhere. The enemy's using it to get their word out, and God is using it to get his word out too. But anyway, at any rate, I saw this on the internet, and it was good. And I just want to just share this with you because I really believe we need to embrace. Here's a couple of truths that I think would help us and you got to decide this before you get into problems. You got to decide that right now. Either God is or he isn't. And if he is, operate as if he is all the time. Don't give up on that. And he'll build your faith in all the things that you go through. Here it is. Okay, listen. God is eternal and he orchestrates all of my life, past, present, and future. God is eternal and he orchestrates all of my life, past, present, and future. God is omnipresent. Therefore, he is with me. I don't have to face my challenges alone. I'm never alone. God is all powerful and nothing is too hard for him. Nobody can frustrate his plans. That's a fact. He made all of this stuff. God is love and he wants the absolute best for me. Always. Therefore, I can trust him. And the 5th thing is God is faithful, and because Christ lives in me, I have all the resources I need. And that's a big one right there. We'd be saying, well, I'm going to wait until, no. If God say go forward, you go forward with what you got. When Moses came up on the Red Sea, he had that stick in his hand. He didn't know what to do. He was just doing what he said, follow God, and God got him out to the sea. And then God said, well, what you got in your hand? Hold it up. And he held that stick up and the sea got out the way. See, we look at all this stuff as if it's not true, but it is true. It is true. You got to make up your mind about who God is, and he'll speak to you and reveal those things to you. That truth will come alive, and all of a sudden you'll have a peace. We had one of my cousins, and this stuff is causing families to fall out and not be able to talk to each other because we're on the wrong side of everybody's on different sides, and the fear is so deep that it's causing us to stress, and Satan is using that fear to just break up all our relationships and everything. But I refuse to accept that. I refuse. My family is my family. And all I can say for absolutely sure, if any of my family call me, I'm coming. I'm gonna do the best I can. I'm coming. And I know my family the same way. But we all got bumps and roads, and they're making sure we don't come together and fix that by canceling the holidays. Satan ain't stupid. We are, but Satan ain't stupid, and we getting played. So they're gonna shut down the holidays so that we can't even come together then, and keep us estranged and separate because a single coal doesn't burn. So with that, God is not going to allow these lies and deceptions in the world to go unaddressed. Okay. You choose God, and it's best for everybody because the world is set up that way. If you fear God, you don't fear anything else. If you don't fear God, you have to be afraid of everything because that means that you got to take care of it, and you can't do nothing. You can't do nothing. I remember my cousin got sick, and they was talking about he had cancer and he was going to fall apart and all that. And we came together as a family. He's got a big family, We came together as a family and all fasted for him and all this cancer. He's supposed to be dead 3 or 4 years ago, however long that was. And every time I talk to him, he say, man, I'm fine. All the stuff just went away. That happened. Okay? So, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will come unto you. In Jesus' name. Crazy Doug. Bless you guys. Amen.